Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely chilling piece of history from the night of December 27th, 1948. Picture this. A Douglas DC-3 aircraft is on a routine flight out of Miami. It's just a standard post-Christmas trip, right? Well, not exactly, because this supposedly routine journey is about to turn into one of the most baffling aviation anomalies we have on record. 134. I want you to really keep that number in mind as we go through today's timeline, because that's the sheer number of human lives on board this flight. We're talking about mothers, fathers, professionals, everyday people whose fates were totally sealed on that cold winter night.
Part 1. The Doomed Flight. Let's look at the passengers and crew.
Breaking that number down, the vast majority of those 134 souls, 125 of them to be exact, were passengers. The other 9 were the dedicated crew members operating the aircraft. Just imagine it. 134 people sitting comfortably in the cabin, totally unaware of the sudden, massive tragedy literally waiting for them just ahead in the dark skies. Now, to really grasp this mystery, we have to set the geographic scene. At exactly 8:13 p.m., the plane was about 1,000 miles away from the east coast of North America. That is complete and utter isolation, just suspended way up over the dark ocean waters. And it's at this precise moment that things start going terribly, terribly wrong. Which brings us to Section 2, Into the Triangle. This is where communications begin to fade. Captain Robert Miller actually reported his last position right here, placing the aircraft squarely in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. And look, as our source material explicitly notes, this is hands down one of the most mysterious places on Earth. I mean, just the infamous reputation of this area alone instantly compounds the sheer terror of what this crew was about to experience. And there is just this staggering disconnect between what was being said over the radio and what was actually happening up there. Captain Miller calmly transmits to air traffic control that they're dealing with a, quote, minor technical problem. But in reality, the plane is actively being swallowed whole by an unseen, absolutely deadly whirlwind. He radically understates the situation while this horrifying reality is quite literally unfolding all around them. Here's how incredibly fast it happens. At 8:13 p.m., comms start fading out with that initial report of a minor glitch. But just 10 seconds later, 10 seconds, all communication with ATC ceases altogether. You go from a seemingly minor issue to complete radio silence in the blink of an eye. And it would be a grueling, agonizing 30 minutes before the plane finally emerged from that storm. Moving to Section 3, the unseen whirlwind, those 30 minutes of absolute terror. So, according to the source accounts, the plane gets caught in a whirlwind that basically completely defies all meteorological expectations. I mean, this was something no one had ever seen or even heard of before. You can imagine the chaotic panic setting in. Sudden screaming echoing through the cabin as the aircraft gets violently flung around at the actual speed of the storm. It was just tossed around like a toy in the pitch black. There's a haunting quote from the source that says, "The plane was no longer under the control of a human being." Captain Miller was a highly experienced pilot fighting for 134 lives, trying with absolutely all his might to regain control. But the mechanics, the steering, the engines, none of it mattered against the raw force of this unseen anomaly. Section 4, the final descent, and the eerie calm that followed. As the plane finally bursts out of that deadly whirlwind, the storm actually clears. But man, their new reality is just as terrifying. Because when they look out the windows, all around them is nothing but endless, dark ocean. And it gets worse. There's this dead silence where there should be the roar of propellers. The engines are still not working. The storm had completely passed, sure, but the DC-3 had suffered a total mechanical failure. And without those engines suspended in the middle of nowhere, the aircraft literally only has one direction left to go. They're just slowly sinking. After 30 minutes of the most terrifying turbulence imaginable, the plane is now locked into this slow, eerie, silent glide downward, right toward the pitch-black waters of the Bermuda Triangle. Then, suddenly, Captain Miller hears a noise. Now, it's not the engines roaring back to life, sadly. It's the unmistakable sound of the plane's tail fin physically striking the water. And that single, terrifying sound signaled the absolute end. They had completely run out of altitude. our source material leaves us with this incredibly devastating conclusion. Captain Miller, he fought to control that plane until the very last possible millisecond, but it was just too late. The quote is simply, "The plane was gone." 134 lives swallowed whole by the dark waters of one of the Earth's most mysterious places. So, what does this all mean? Which brings me to the final thought I want to leave you with in today's explainer. What truly happens inside the unseen whirlwinds of the Bermuda Triangle? Think about it. A plane flies in, reports a supposedly minor glitch, loses all comms in 10 seconds flat, and gets battered by an anomaly completely unknown to human science. We've mapped out the chilling timeline of what we know happened, but the true nature of that whirlwind, it remains an absolute mystery. Thanks so much for joining me on this one, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.